What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL. Joined as always by my main man, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's going on, brother?
Man, I am doing great. The week's almost over, so
Close, man.
it's getting close. So weekend's almost here, as of the time of this recording, anyways.
Right.
So yeah, I just looking forward to the weekend. That'll be one another couple days closer to the draft, and I am so looking forward to it.
Yeah, like as of recording tonight, we are exactly 2 weeks away from the draft, which is great. Um, this will be our last video in this draft series. Um, Next week's video will be like what we're going to call our pound for pound official mock draft, how we feel like it's going to go, and that's what we're going to put out next week. But as of this week, we're going to wrap this thing up by talking about the secondary. um, Now, we did a video that was, I think it was out last week, with Savion Mixon, where we spent a good bit of time talking about secondary, getting his opinion. And on that video, me and Jonathan both stated that secondary isn't necessarily our strongest suit. But through this process, reading other people's reports and things of that nature, and just, you know, who caught our eye, uh, we're going to do like we've done so far and just bring you some names of people that could fit what we're trying to do here in Atlanta, and who could fit, the culture, the physicality, that kind of stuff. But like, part of me almost has the wind taken out of my sails a little bit with the Jeff Okuda, and realizing
Yeah.
that we have 9 cornerbacks on the roster, and
Yep.
uh, but I don't think the Jeff Okuda thing actually takes us out of the running for a corner.
No. I don't think I am in agreement with you. I don't necessarily think I don't even think it necessarily takes us out of the running of getting like a corner in the. I do think it's more likely that you may have a few guys that are kind of like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, whatever.
Right.
And a cornerback may be in there, but because they feel like they can still get a guy later in the draft, they may go with a different guy as their BPA, uh, simply because there's not as much need within the BPA group for a
Mhm.
cornerback.
Right.
So there is always that possibility. And the two guys that I picked, I'm assuming the two guys you picked, both are like mid draft, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but they're about mid
Yeah,
draft-ish guys.
that's what I was shooting for. Like, I almost went with Brian Branch, who could very well be the first safety taken off the board. But I was like, that doesn't really fit the spirit of what we're trying to do with this series.
Yeah.
I probably still went a little higher on one of them than I should have. But I really liked his play. So but anyway,
If he catches your eye, you have a good time watching his tape. It don't
right.
matter where he goes.
I guess before we really get into it, I am going to throw out like an honorary mention to Brian Branch, because, as I said when I found out, that he went to Sandy Creek High School, which is a high school I graduated from. So he automatically become like one of my favorite players in the draft, just because I think that's cool. Because that would make, if he were to go on to have a good career, that would make the second star player from Sandy Creek High School. Calvin Johnson being the
Yep.
most famous one. So anyway, but yeah, I was really tempted to spend my time talking about Brian Branch, but I decided not to. But we're going to start with one of your guys, and
Yep.
that is one Eli Ricks. So what you got for
Yep.
Mr. Ricks?
So Mr. Ricks started out, the started out at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
He played like 10 games, 482 snaps or what have you. Um, had 4 interceptions as a freshman. Um, and then and again, he played for LSU as a sophomore, but then uh, as a
Junior.
after his sophomore year as a junior, he transferred to Alabama. I guess because he only played in 6 games with LSU. He was lost for the season with a torn labrum.
Right.
Um, but so yeah, he went to Alabama, played in 8 games. Didn't have any interceptions, but he had like a uh, when targeted, he had a QB rating of 41.8,
Yeah.
which is really good.
Yeah. He had a, like, and that QBR is also speaking to the 10 like past defenses that he's had. So he may not necessarily be a ball hawk, but it does seem that, um, he's good at, you know, making up and tracking the ball and knocking it away.
Yeah, and this guy, when you watch him, uh, he's very athletic, very good out of his like back pedal. Um, you know, does a very good job with tracking the ball as well. Like we see a lot of college cornerbacks don't necessarily have that outside of like the really top tier guys don't do that very well coming into the league. And uh, the other guy I'm going to look at kind of has that issue.
Right.
But you see that with a lot of guys that come into the league. It's just they have to learn to do it better. Um, but this guy is very quick. Uh, very good and plays. When you watch him play, he's only 188 pounds. He's 6'2", so he's
Right.
got the length, but he's only 188 pounds. He's not a burner. He ran like a 4.640.
Hmm.
So he's not like elite track speed type of guy, but he's got really good change of direction.
Hmm.
Um, very good, just natural quickness. And when the guy plays press coverage, he uses his hands, has really good punch. He's able to change, like I said, he had really good change of direction, so he's able to stay with guys in like the underneath routes and everything like that. Um, just very physical guy, which I think is what we're looking for in Atlanta is much, physical corners that will get up there and, fight with the wide receiver, try to get them off their timing, get them off their routes,
Right.
win at the line of scrimmage as well as down the field. And so, but this guy is something that he kind of excels at the thing that we kind of don't have, not that we don't have, but we could always use a little bit more of, which is he's very good and effective out of the slot.
Right.
Um, with the quickness that he has, he's got the ability to cover the two-way goes and react to those and stay with them, in a much better way than some receivers or some cornerbacks. So he's got good instincts. He plays the ball really well. They say he tracks the ball really well. He may have some tough times if we're talking just straight up foot race. He may get beat sometimes like that. Um, he's still a little inexperienced.
Hmm.
Played just over like 1,200 snaps over his entire college career. Um, so there is a little bit of that. He does have some issues in zone coverage, which, again, we've talked about this before. Ryan Nielsen comes from New Orleans. Everybody's thinking, oh, they play a lot of man. They're going to we're going to do the exact same thing. But again, we don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
We don't
that
know.
is that a Allen thing or is that a Nielsen thing? If it was a Nielsen thing, then yeah, we'll play a lot of man coverage. This guy will probably be very good, really good out the gate with that. But even if we are playing man a ton, we're still going to play zone a bunch, and that's where he kind of has had his struggles. Is whenever he plays in zone coverage, he kind of gets lost a little bit there. Um, and because of his physical play, like and he's probably going to draw some flags early on.
That was something
Um,
I was thinking. Like as he adjusts, well, with his physicality, is he gonna be, grabbing a lot more, drawing, drawing like pass interference, type stuff.
Yep.
Um, so that would be like listening to you, talk about it. And that was one of the first things that kind of like, popped in my mind is if he's a physical corner, much better in man than he is in zone. Is he going to show like the tendency to panic?
Well, but he also just may be a physical guy and may run by the adage of they're not going to call him all.
I mean,
He
yeah,
that
you can't call them all. So
right. So as long as you're not murdering a guy on the field, they're not going to call you every single time. So he may, and just as a rule, as a general rule, we may be trying to go that route, like the Seattles, like New Orleans, where, yeah, you're going to get caught for pass interference or holding from time to time, but, you can be physical and 95% of the time or better, you're probably going to get away with
right.
it. Because they're just not going to call it every single time.
Yeah,
So
he's just gonna have to learn to pick his spots. Like,
exactly.
if it's the big big moments in the game, like pivotal moments, try to be a little cleaner then at that point. But
Yep.
yeah, you're definitely
But
gonna have to pick his spots.
so yeah, like just looking around at what some of other people have him as, this guy is coming in at around like a third round prospect. Some have him as a high third round, some have him as mid to low. So this guy, like I said, this is a guy that mid draft, day two, maybe
Early part of day
possibly
three,
day three,
right?
potentially. But day two goes through rounds
It's second
two
and
through.
second and third. So
So
your
yeah,
day, yeah, your day one's the first round. Day two, second and third. Day three is fourth through seventh.
he could go as early as mid day two, like early third. He could go late day two, but also potentially could slide down to like early day three. Um, but he's a guy that, like you talked about, we have 9 guys on the roster already in the secondary. But we're obviously going to bring in a whole bunch more guys that'll come in for training camp and things like that.
And then
And there's going to be guys that are on the roster now that are not going to be on the roster come opening
that's the
day.
thing. Like once these, they could draft this guy and he could easily, come in and replace Cornelius Armstrong or,
Cornelius
some,
Alfred, I
right,
mean, yeah,
depending
you
on
just never know.
right, you just never know where it's gonna go. But yeah, I think that we're gonna come out of the draft. They're spending too much time looking at corners not to come out of the draft with a corner.
Yeah.
So
Because you could never, I mean, just look at last year. Like we at certain
last two
times of the year,
years,
yeah, but if we just take most recent history, last year, yeah, but you can go with last 2 years, but last year especially, like, you had times where AJ Terrell wasn't there and Hayward was not there for like the whole second half of the season,
right? And then
or
like I said, the year
longer.
before, like you had AJ Terrell was gone for the vast majority of the last the you Smith's first season, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's yeah, can't have too much
So,
depth at that point.
no, so like this is a guy that I think has the tools and the ability. I think this is a guy that potentially could come in and be really good in the slot, really good quickness. So for guys like, I'm blanking on like a like a current day, but like a Danny Amendola or, those kinds of guys, the little quick, shifty white dudes,
Right, right.
uh, the guys that are just
The
full of
Scotty
grit and
Millers, no,
they're gym rats and all this,
yeah,
all this other stuff. They're, just so gritty.
right. Bring their
But
lunch pail.
those, yeah, exactly. Those guys that just confound us something bad, um, and not because they're top end speed guys, not because they're so physical or anything like that. It's simply their quickness and change of direction. And this is a guy that could be a potential counter to that because that's where he does better at is in the slot, underneath routes, quick, quick change of pace, that
Right.
kind of stuff. That's his strength. His strength is not necessarily, let me go catch the fastest guy and try to run down the field with him.
Right.
Now, having Jesse Bates back there can help him because he can be more physical, and if he does happen to get beat, there's more of a chance that Bates will be back there to clean up any kind of mistakes.
Right.
But yeah, he's a guy that is intriguing from a depth perspective right now. Could potentially start right now, but if he ends up being a backup guy that's depth and maybe comes in as like the fourth cornerback or something like that, then that will be fine too. Again, if you're picking him in like the mid third, maybe early fourth,
Hmm.
then I think this is a guy that would probably fit the bill for what we're looking for.
When talking about another intriguing guy, your next guy is super intriguing to me. Especially with some of the comments that Terry Fontenot has made, and that's Ronnie Hickman, safety out of Ohio State.
Yep.
Um, talk to me about Hickman.
So this guy, 6 foot 203. Now he's a faster guy, 4.45 40. Um,
That's scooting.
he, that's pretty quick. Um, he only played in 3 games as a freshman in 2020.
Mhm.
Got into 13 as a sophomore, um, and then played in 12 in 2022. So like we actually, you now thinking about it, we probably saw him in the national championship game.
Oh, the
Um,
yeah the semifinal.
no, I'm thinking the national championship game, like against Georgia,
No, that would have been the
Ohio.
semifinal. That was before they Georgia played TCU for the championship.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Never mind. You're
Everybody
right. You're
felt like
absolutely.
the Ohio State game was the national championship because Georgia absolutely slaughtered TCU.
You're
So
right. You're
I
right.
could see how you made that.
You're absolutely right. Completely
Like
zoned on that one. Yeah.
it's all good.
But
Um,
no, but yeah, he 38 tackles. This is his past season. 38 tackles, 14 assists, 12 stops. As far as in the secondary, he then also had like 4 pass breakups, 1 interception. And when he was targeted, we're talking about a passer rating of 34.7. So even better than the last guy. And this is another guy. Now he's got the speed, whereas
right.
uh, um,
Ricks didn't
Ricks
necessarily.
did not.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, like in the run game, he is a thumper. Like this is a strong safety guy. Now he can play, with the speed and everything. He can play deep safety if necessary.
Right.
But we have our deep safety. So this guy, if he comes in, this is like either I can see this guy like coming in year one, maybe even at some point during the year, depending on how both of them play. This is a guy I can see as a replacement for Grant, as a much more like physical, strong safety guy.
Right.
But I would think more likely this guy would be potentially your uh, um, big nickel
Yeah,
safety.
that's what I was just sitting there thinking because like that's something that at the scouting combine, like Fontenot talked about from the podium. Briefly talked about the nickel player being a starter in this league, and then even is going as far as to say, bringing up the term big nickel. So that may be like how Nielsen wants to run it because that was one of the more widely used formations that they had in New Orleans, which was the 3 safeties on the field with Tyrann Mathieu. And if they're doing more like the split safety coverages, you could have Grant and Bates patrolling the back end with like Hickman, you know, closer to the box,
Yep.
which could be fun and entertaining as well.
Yeah, and this guy, like I said, he's got really, he's got that ideal size for a in the box safety.
Uh-huh.
Um, but but with that 4.45 speed, he's got the straight line speed. And he seemed, just watching him, got very like fluid movements, doesn't seem super stiff or anything like that. So if he has to get out and run with a receiver or a tight end, he absolutely can do that. um, and with that speed, he can cover tons of ground with a run defender. Just once he recognizes it and hits the burners, this guy gets there in a hurry.
Yeah,
So
he seems like a just by kind of what I'm skimming here while you're talking and listening to you talk, he also seems like very much a versatile, player. And I think that's what they're, looking for. If he's got that kind of speed, he'd probably be, hell on wheels coming off the edge as a like, on safety blitzes and or
yep.
nickel blitzes, stuff like that. And, I think that kind of versatility would be, warmly welcomed here in Atlanta.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And the good thing is when he gets there with bad intentions. The bad part, a little bit about him, that he needs to work on. Once he gets to the NFL, wherever he's at, uh, he needs to. When he comes with those bad intentions, he needs to actually like wrap up and tackle a guy, not
Yeah,
just
not
deliver the
just try
big
to
hit.
boomstick somebody.
Don't just try to Keanu Neal a guy.
Right, right, yeah,
So there's a time and a place for that, but like he tries to do that too often. So he needs to break down, wrap up, do that a little bit better. Once he gets that down, like, and he does that with more consistency and still is able from time to time to just straight bring destruction,
right,
then then this guy's going to be just fine in the NFL. Not saying he'll be like top end guy, but like this is a guy that I could see being a starter for a team. Maybe not day one, but give him a year, 2 years in the league, I could see him being a starter.
right,
But this guy, saw him covering tight ends, saw him covering slot receivers. He's got the speed to do that. He's got the quickness to handle like some of the quicker guys underneath that, not as good as somebody like a Ricks, but he's not going to be a complete and utter liability in that case. In which case, you would probably bring in somebody like a Hicks or sorry, Ricks or Alford or somebody like that to come in and get those kind of guys. And this guy would
mhm,
probably stick with, the bigger receivers, like bigger slot guys, and then also your tight ends where he matches up a little bit better size wise with those guys.
yep. And I think I was on my first guy. I was thinking along the same lines you were as far as with Ronnie Hickman, and that was I went with Jordan Battle. Um, as I talked about at the top of the show, I was really tempted to go with the other Alabama safety, who now I'm blanking on his name, Brian Branch.
Oh
Good
yeah,
lord,
Brian Branch. Yeah.
I just absolutely just brain just locked up. Anyway, um, but I was like, no, I need to stay like in more of the spirit of the show. And now he could be a first rounder, but I think he's more likely being going to be called during the second round.
Yeah.
So like he could be our number 44 pick in the second round if like say we go edge or um offensive player in the first round. So like Jordan Battle is he's more of a strong safety type. 10 pass defenses, a little bit higher of a QBR, but only allowed 111 targets or 111 yards in 2021. So
Yeah.
he has the ability. It has to be more consistent with it. 6 interceptions, 10 pass defenses. He smooth hips, fluid in coverage. He could play. He's like we were talking about that versatility. Like he's got enough like high IQ and everything else, and like recognizing the like route combinations where he could, if he really wanted to, play more of like he could play corner or he could play safety. So I think that he could bring that versatility early on, could very well be, your nickel player.
Mhm.
If that's where they wanted to play him, especially in a big nickel type situation. Or if like Richie Grant doesn't progress, like he may then, could overtake Richie Grant in a year or so. But I'm definitely not ready to give up on Grant yet by any stretch of the imagination. Um, let's see. He has good body control and balance. He redirects very well, like tough and scrappy, physical at all levels of the field, which I think is something that Nielsen's going to covet. Um, like he has a reputation of like just like Hickman, laying the big stick, not necessarily wrapping up. Um, one scouting report I read says he's highlighted this because I thought it was funny. Says scares the hell out of smaller receivers over the middle. Regularly blows them up with big hits, and
Yep.
so I was like, all right, yeah, I can get behind that. But um, like I told mentioned before, very high football IQ, a natural leader, and those are the intangible things that football organizations look for.
Yep.
If you have that natural like leadership quality to you, and they can see that, that's something that makes you even more appealing, to them. Um, like I said, I think he would be a great, strong safety if Richie doesn't, take that step towards, because Richie kind of got caught in like in between being, oh, he could be a strong or he could be a free. Well, now you have, Jesse Bates, who is definitely a free safety.
Yeah.
Now Richie's going to have to, transition to more of a strong safety, or depending on how they want to deploy it. But Battle at 6'1", 209 has the size to be able to handle that. Is 40, not like a blazing 40, ran a 4.55. So not blazing, but at 209, that's a pretty good 40
Four
for him.
4.55 for a strong safety kind of guy is real good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, in 2022, he recorded like 71 tackles, including a half a stop, because those are important. Just like you can't forget that half inch, half a
Nope,
stop
cannot do it.
to go along with a couple pass breakups and some interceptions. So, he's like I said, versatility is key with this guy, and I think that early on in his career, he could easily be the nickel player. And it seems like they're really on a lookout for a nickel player since they didn't bring back Isaiah Oliver. Uh, for whatever reason, whether it was Oliver just didn't want to be in Atlanta anymore after coming off of, a short term deal. Maybe he just felt slighted or whatever, But after not bringing Alford back, it seems like they're definitely in a search for a nickel player. And I think he could be that. Now, they seem to also wanted to be bringing in every possible corner in the world. And I figured this guy kind of was a little bit of a ha 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 joke, when we were down at the Senior Bowl, because on the big scoreboard they were putting up like interesting facts about players. And when Riley Moss's name came up, it said it was like he was the fastest player. Then it said in Iowa, and we chuckled because like like how many people are in Iowa? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna go ahead and call it. I don't know a ton about Iowa, but kind of like the joke you were making before about the scrappy white guy who always brings his lunch pail and first
Yep.
in, last out, all those gym rat monikers. Like I also find it kind of ironic that he's a white cornerback, because you just don't see that often,
Mr.
But
Jason Seahorn, come,
right.
will you stand up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, but at 6'1", 193, he fits that mold of the size that the Falcons are reportedly look for, and at a 4.45, in the 40, that's moving pretty good.
Oh yeah.
He was displaying that track speed. He's a 5th-year starter. So he's got the experience that you would want. So he's going to be a little bit of the older side as far as some of these guys go. But he's smart. He's getting fluid movement, like good size. He even made we've referenced before Bruce Feldman's freak list, and he was ranked number 19 on Feldman's freak list, and he wrote Moss has a vertical jump of 42 inches and a broad jump of 10 foot 8 inches. We're told he was
Yeah.
clocked at the fastest short shuttle time for DBs in 2 decades. Plus, at Iowa, blazing through it in 3.85 seconds. So
Yep.
that would be almost a full tenth of a second faster than anyone at this year's combine, with Sam Houston State's Zion McCollum going 3.94. So, like, speed is Riley Moss's game. His
Yes.
speed, his quickness, his agility. He's got excellent change of direction ability. He mirrors very well. He's got a very strong understanding of route combinations. He's a very smart, instinctual player. Um, he tends to, like, the big knock on him, and I don't know if it was the way he was coached or what, but the big knock on him was he played a little bit more conservatively
Yep.
instead of just like naturally acting on his instincts, on what he saw. Um, he tended to be a little bit more conservative, giving a little bit too much cushion, but that could be what the coaches were telling him to do.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
but
possible.
you figure with somebody with his speed, though, he should be okay with getting beat because he has the speed to make it up.
Mhm.
So um, he's scored good at both like zone and man press coverages. Uh, but it seems like he's probably a little bit more comfortable in man than he is zone, which might be one of the reasons why was given a bigger cushion.
Yeah, and this guy, but when you bring that up, that was just looking around at different cornerbacks. I see that a lot. Like when it comes to playing cornerback in college, there's a lot more man coverage, a lot less zone. Um, so you just don't get the opportunity to do it as much.
Right,
For one, and two, playing zone is a more difficult. Uh, you know, it's more difficult in the aspect of there you have to think about how they're lined up. What route combinations can you expect, or should you be expecting when you look at how their what their alignment is?
right,
Is this guy, are they stacked? And if so, which guy is stacked? And when they're usually stacked like that, how do they usually run? What kind of combinations do they usually run? And then it becomes like, okay, I need this guy's in my zone. Do I need to keep chasing him? Do I need to stop keep chasing? So there's a lot more that goes into playing
there's
zone.
there's a lot that
the
goes
men,
into that.
the mental aspect of it. Now, that's not to say playing man is easy. It's hard from a physical standpoint of you gotta watch this guy. You gotta pick up on whatever ticks that the guy's got that give away, like, or try to figure out if he gives away, like, oh, I'm about to do an in cut because I'm doing this, or I'm go route because of that, or a seven route because of this, or whatever.
Right.
And you got to have good reflexes for when they do change directions on you, that you can stay with them. But from a from a mental standpoint, man coverage far easier than zone.
Yeah, because all you got to do is just you lock up with your man,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you notice his QBR here is 82.7. Something I
Mhm.
want to like kind of point out. He is a fifth year starter, and that 82.7 probably has a lot to do with the 811 snaps that he played last year. You
A lot of
know,
snaps.
that's a lot of snaps. Like, so if there is also a concern, like, he's played a lot of snaps, in Iowa, but last year he had a 55.1 QBR, which is much better. So, um, I think for Riley Moss, he's got a lot of experience, got a lot of snaps, and I think he's a guy who, at bare minimum, could be some excellent depth for you. But again, I think he's a guy who, if Jeff Okuda doesn't work out and you move off of Okuda, like, he's a guy who could play opposite of AJ Terrell and give you some very good quality snaps and good quality reps. He may not
Yep.
be a superstar, but I think he would be a better than average cornerback in my opinion.
He's a guy I mean, great. He may get to the NFL and light it up,
Oh yeah,
but he's a guy that I think at the end of the day, the floor for him, assuming no injuries and things of that nature. But I think the floor for him is kind of a um, he's the guy that is your third or fourth, like third, maybe fourth guy, and then has to move in. If your quarterback one or two goes down, he moves up and he's your backup guy.
yeah. I think
I
he's
think that's the floor for him.
right. The first one off the bench. Like
Yep.
if you're going traditional nickel situations, like he's the first one out there, in my opinion. And like you said, um, your main guy goes down and he moves onto the field, and I don't think you lose much of production. And that's to me, that's the low end of Riley Moss. I don't know exactly. I guess because if this draft has one thing in it, it has corners. It has a lot of corners, and it has a lot of good quality corners. And I think
Yep.
he's a guy who's getting lost in the shuffle. And he may be a guy that because of that, we could pick up at the back end of the fourth round, or if we package our couple sevenths to move up into the fifth or something, like we could probably grab him in that area because I think, like I said, this draft has some corners, and so he's a guy who isn't getting talked about much that I think should get talked about a little bit more.
Nice. Yeah, he seems like a guy that has some good traits, and if he gets in the right situation with the right coaching, uh, this guy could be a quality starter in the NFL. I can
Yep.
see it.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for our pre-draft. Like, hey, take a look at these guys, kind of stuff. Um, if you've missed any of those, they're obviously on the channel. We have covered every position group. Uh, from the I don't think we spent a ton of time on quarterbacks, but hey, I
No,
don't think there wasn't a ton of reason to spend a ton of time on quarterbacks, in my opinion. I know the Falcons are bringing some in, but I think outside of the top two, I don't think they'll take one. Uh,
I would say if there's anybody outside the top two, I'm not gonna put a name on them, but and I'm not just saying like I don't think they'll pick up Levis. I don't think they'll pick up Richardson. If they do, they'll pick up a guy somewhere later in the draft that is you stash him on this practice squad because you like some of his film or you like some of his traits,
right.
but maybe he scores really high or whatever that
That
stupid uh
whatever S2 test or whatever that's
yeah, whatever that is. Brock Purdy scored high on it, but he still went as Mr. Irrelevant. So,
right.
maybe you find a guy that doesn't have the physical stuff, but the S2 thing is a really high score, and you're like, well, let's take a
Take a
flyer
flyer.
on him in
Yep.
like the sixth or seventh round, and then you stash him on the practice squad, and just let him sit and learn, and maybe he becomes a capable backup. Maybe he becomes something more. Who knows? But I don't see us taking. If we take a quarterback, it's going to be no earlier than the fifth, but like it wouldn't be any earlier than sixth in my mind.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're looking at maybe like the kid Tune out of Houston, or Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue, who they had at the Shrine game. So yeah, I don't think you're taking one in the first round by any stretch. But yeah, so like I said, just that'll do it for us on this one. You can always follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Jonathan,
At Jonathan M. Holder, come by, say hi.
we'll be back live next Tuesday, and then like I said, we'll have our official pound for pound mock come out next week. So anyway, keep your eye on the channel, and as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.